Ji, Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Yusuf Raza. Unfortunately, I do not have Azam with me today. He got caught up. In any case, we have a very special show planned for you today. As we shared, हमारी mental health awareness की campaign चल रही है and हमारे पे अक्सर लोग एतराज़ भी करते हैं और जायज़ करते हैं कि आप लोग जो बुराइयां हैं और जो बुरी-बुरी बातें हैं और जो नेगेटिविटीज़ हैं और जो the dark side of the picture है, that's being shown quite a lot. It is as if there is nothing good going on. It is as if there are no good people around. It is as if कोई अच्छाई का काम नहीं हो रहा, अच्छे लोग नहीं हैं, अच्छा काम कर नहीं रहे. So keeping that in mind and to share with our audience and anyone who cares to listen that there is not just a ray of hope, there's a lot of hope, right? There are a lot of good people doing a lot of good stuff out there. And so for that reason, we are joined today by two of the representatives of Saving9 organization. I will allow for them to introduce themselves. I will first ask Faizan Tirmidhi, who is the Director of Development for Saving9, bring him in stream, and then he will be followed by Amina, and then the three of us will try to talk about all of their projects and all of the wonderful things that they're doing and the experiences that they have from that. Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Faizan. And there seems to be a technical issue. I think, Faizan, you're on mute. Now we can hear you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't think I can hear you.
So
I cannot hear you at all. And we're back. Is it working now?
Does it work? Okay. Can you hear me?
Faizan, आपकी आवाज बहुत scramble होके आ रही है. I don't know if it's just me or if that's the case with everyone. Ji, I can hear you, but very scrambled. दोबारा बोलिएगा. Chale. I'm sorry, I can't catch any of that. Let me ask Amna to join us. Amna, Assalamu alaikum. Amna Tirmidhi, people. She is the director of mental health operations at Saving9. Unfortunately, Faizan's having technical issues. Part of the package. Hota hai. Lekin now that you're here, thank you so much for being here. If you could introduce Saving9 for us.
Of course, assalamu alaikum to you and to everybody who's watching. My name is Amina, and I'm the director for the mental health initiatives at Saving9. And Saving9 is an organization that works in public health, in mental health, and in education. And we basically build communities of care, and we basically go into schools, universities, pind, gaon, anywhere who would let us in, and we spread literacy for first aid, and we spread mental health awareness, and our narrative is built around empathy and caring for each other, and we've been working for about 3 years now, I want to say. And it's just been an amazing journey.
That is wonderful. Any specific areas you're mainly working around Pindi, Islamabad, as I'm given to understand? Yes.
Yes. So primarily because the biggest cluster of our team is in Islamabad and Pindi. That's where a lot of our on-ground operations happen. But we do trainings in Lahore and Karachi, and we have a team in the States where they work in helping us kind of spread the word and run operations and just a lot of other things that they do.
Okay, great. And I think Faizan is ready to join us. Assalamu alaikum, Faizan.
I'm really sorry for technological issues. I have proper internet. I'm using this device. It's quite awesome. So my name is Faizan Tirmidhi, as you can see on the screen, and I'm the director for development operations. And the pinned side
And I think the technical difficulties have taken over once again.
All right. So can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Let's take 3.
All right. I
And
will
we're
let
on again.
Amna do more, and that's what I would like more because of the technical issues, and I will join in between. We'll keep
We
solving
can
them.
hear you now, by the way.
Yes,
Okay.
please go ahead. Let's see how
Yeah.
long this lasts. Please go on.
Okay, I shall really speed up the process then. So Amna introduced us. We've been around for 3 years. We started off in Islamabad. Today was the first day when we actually expanded our operations to from Union Council 7 in Punjab.
Okay, Amna to the rescue.
Yes.
Gee. Please.
Yeah, Zindabad.
Faizan was trying to say something. If you can, he was saying that you guys expanded today. There was some milestone achieved today.
I think that was something in his team that we've started working in other operations, and we're out of Union Council 7. We're moving forward to the next Union Council, and basically we're growing. One thing that I really, really love about the work that we do is that we don't just go into a community and say, "Hum ye kaam kar rahe hain, okay, bye," after a couple of years. We really, really work on developing the community itself and having the community take ownership of what they're doing. So, for example, with Fazan's work, where he has, we're running an ambulance called the Masiha Ambulance Network. So we've trained men and women from the community in first aid. They are first responders. They have continuous professional development courses that they undertake, and they're growing, right? So eventually, when we do step out of this community, it will be a self-sustaining model where the people have taken ownership of it. A huge thing that happens is people go in, they have expertise, they make change. There is significant change that you can see in data that they publish. But over a period of time, because ab wo kaam koi nahi kar raha, yeah, jo log trained hue the initially, they were on positions that were not of a leadership level. So you lose the community leaders. So here we basically only are there to facilitate, and the community takes initiative. And we've seen amazing things happen, like jo hamare objectives mein tha bhi nahi, things like that happened. So the place where the Masiha ambulance used to stand, our EMP said that in between shifts they have a lot of time. So they started running a garden, and they planted vegetables, and they told people who don't have money to eat, they can come and take whatever they want from the garden and take it to their houses. And it's really building this community and this narrative of taking care of each other, which is so important. And especially, like, I want to bring the discussion slightly to the mental health side, if I can.
Yes, for sure.
Part of the big problem here is that mental health ends up taking a backseat in most conversations about health because आपका basic infrastructure नहीं है, because access to first aid, access to normal public health facilities is so limited that you cannot even start having the conversation about mental health yet. And so what we really want is for communities to take care of each other until that accessibility increases, and a lot of amazing work is happening to bring more access to mental health. But until then, the community kind of takes care of each other, and we've had awareness campaigns about depression, about anxiety, about PTSD with members of the Masiha ambulance who have then taken it forward into the community, which has been great. Like, just to share a small anecdote, a lot of times if somebody was having an episode of mania in bipolar, it would often be said that they are possessed by something, and instead of taking the proper help or getting medicines or going to a psychiatrist or the hospital, they would end up being taken to somebody who would claim to be able to rid them of this possession, and in the process traumatize them further with physical aggression, you know. So things like that have somewhat gone down in this region at least, and it's really such a powerful thing to witness communities kind of change mindsets.
That's wonderful. Amak, if you can walk us through when, and we have Faizan back with us. Thank you for joining us. Let's just continue our conversation on this, your mental health awareness campaigns that you led within the community. And of course, you're going really into the suburban areas, the rural population, जहाँ पे हम expect करते हैं कि stigma सबसे ज़्यादा होगा, reception इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं होगी, लोग इस तरह के ideas को mental health के बारे में आप उनके long held जो एक health belief model है उसको एक तरह से एक alternate दे रहे हो, तो there may be some, you know, how were you received? How was the whole campaign received?
Okay, so I think a lot of it, I'm not going to take a lot of responsibility for how we did something amazing. A lot of it was this organic growth. We started with doing first aid courses in a couple of the schools in Pinbegwal. And then what happened after that was that we saw the need for an ambulance there. And then our ambulance started functioning. And then we were in contact with local influencers, people who had you know, thought leadership in the area, and being seen with those people kind of got us this kind of this rapport built between the two communities, and we were able to kind of gain a certain amount of trust with them. And then after that intervention, when we said, hey, you know, depression एक चीज होती है, anxiety एक चीज होती है, लोग आलसी सिर्फ नहीं होते, लोग निकम्मे सिर्फ नहीं होते, you know. And that was kind of like अच्छा बताएं क्या करें, you know, like to go in directly and tell somebody कि सुने ये गलत है would have been a little more difficult, definitely. But I think because we had that rapport with the community, and we bonded on different levels as well, right? And then whatever interventions we were doing, they were saving lives in the community. So there was a lot of back and forth between the kind of trust we built over the years. And then what happened after that was that we took to some of the 5 of the schools in the region. It's a small village, and we went to 5 schools in the area, and we kind of had conversations about corporal punishment, right? And we talked to the teachers about the kind of impact and the effect that has on a student's or a child's mental health, you know. And the most famous Bandura Bobo doll experiment tells us that aggressive behavior is internalized, and then children in turn manipulate that aggression and you know, manifest it in different ways in their lives. And that was kind of the thought that we started with, and we started the Safe School Spaces project in the PIND, and we kind of did interventions on empathy. And one of the biggest things we saw there was, it's not just that there's a lot of policy that says, okay, you know, corporal punishment is wrong, it's prohibited, it's banned. But I feel like the teachers who themselves have been taught the same way that they teach now don't know any other way. So when you give them the tools, when you kind of give them access to teaching strategies that could move away from that, you know, and they start seeing that, okay, there is another way to go about it. And you start telling them from their own experience that, you know, let's take you back to when you were a child and you were hit in school, or you were treated so badly. How did that make you feel? And how do you think that impacts your life now? So coming in and telling somebody you're wrong is something that didn't really either like speak to us in any way, but I think it's also not the right approach, right? Changing mindsets is about introspection. It's about having them come to a realization that you facilitate, that perhaps there is another way to go about it. And I think one thing that we were very mindful of was to respect the fact that there is a certain culture that we don't want to go in and disrupt and say, we know better than you. It was a joint learning. I learned so much in those training sessions with those teachers, with community people. Part of it being I've learned so much Punjabi over the last 3 years, and my Urdu has gotten so much better. But on a more serious note, there's a lot of give and take between the kind of learning we share, and it's wonderful because then you see that there are initiatives that these people take. So, for example, after we were done with the Safe School Spaces trainings, we saw that these teachers went into the community, and जो पुरान टीचर्स होती हैं जो घरों में जाती हैं या जो ट्यूटर्स होती हैं जो घरों में जाती हैं, they started sharing all of their learning with those teachers. And this is what I was talking about initially. When you empower the community and you give them leadership roles, they really take on that mindset and they want to create change as well. So it's been, I think हमने इतना कुछ नहीं किया, इन लोगों ने ही ज्यादा किया है, and it's just been so exciting to watch this whole thing.
That's so inspirational. I think the critical point जो हम लोग नहीं करते as psychiatrists or as campaigners for the cause of mental health, जो आप लोगों ने, the way you said कि वो organic growth उसकी हुई थी, और before you went in to teach, आपकी presence वहाँ पे established थी, community leaders saw you, they interacted with you, they saw what you had come with in terms of you were actually saving lives. So first aid trainings, ambulance service, all of that having been, they could see that and they could trust you. And so
Yes.
वो जो alien feeling of being invaded by people, ये शहर के लोग आ गए हैं, अपने आप को पता नहीं क्या समझते हैं, कपड़े भी हमारे जैसे नहीं पहनते, ज़बान भी हमारी जैसी नहीं बोलते, और ये बस अब हमें कोई हमारी ब्रेन वॉशिंग करेंगे और हमें कोई अजीब अजीब किस्म की चीज़ें सिखाएंगे. You were able to ensure that you bypassed all of that you did not come across those obstacles, क्योंकि आप लोगों ने एक ट्रस्ट गेन किया था, अच्छा ये तो हमें सिखाने आए हैं, ये तो हमें वो चीजें जो हमारे लोगों की जिंदगियां बचा रही हैं, और ना सिर्फ ये, and they didn't seem to see any vested interest either. It's not like you were charging them an arm and a leg and looking to run for political office from that particular area. That probably came as something very surprising to them as well, कि ये फिर लोग करने क्या आए हैं. And I'm sure that contributed to the trust. Faizan, thank you for coming back. I hope your blurry image is going to move now.
Yeah.
And it's
this
this okay. As somebody in our comments is suggesting, there's like a digital jinn that seems to have taken over. We don't have the technical exorcism available to us. Okay, chale. We continue then. All right. So. Faizan, we can't hear you. There's a scramble. And your image is blurred. Chale, coming right back to you, Amna. As I understand it, okay, now I've lost both of them, and it just leaves me here. So I will wait for either one of them to come back. Maybe it's the internet on my end. But thank you all for being here. Quite a happening episode already. And Amina is back. Yeah. You're back. All right. Yes. So as I understand it, आप लोगों की जो interventions थी, they started happening as the need was assessed. जैसे जैसे आपको लगा कि ये एरिया भी ड्रेसल मांगता है, इस चीज की भी कमी है, तो साथ ही साथ you developed the resources and the human resource in particular to be able to deliver And the strategy, however, remained the same कि हमने empower करना है, हमने community को साथ लेके चलना है, हमने उनके trust पे develop करना है. And so when we have to leave from here, the community is self-sufficient in these services.
Right. So somewhat, yes. I think it was a balance of the two things. We always had a vision of what areas of interventions we wanted to do, right? So first aid being the first and foremost primary thing that we wanted to achieve, because it's something that is relatively simple, not to mitigate or tone down the work or the importance of it, but it's a relatively easy skill to acquire and learn and administer. And it's shocking that while it is something that can be so simple, there are so many lives that are lost because of the fact that people don't have access to the knowledge, or they don't know what to do in case of an emergency, right? So that, I think, going forward was the first thing that we wanted to do. It just so happened that our core team that we started with was a bunch of teachers. So Sama, the CEO, he has a degree in teaching from Columbia. Saima Sayed, the head of training, has taught for so many years of her life, and I had just graduated, and Fizan had been teaching for the past 2 years ever since he had graduated. I also became a teacher. So we really wanted to focus on the accessibility of first aid, so people and how we were teaching, right? We were very mindful of that. So the course was designed in a way that anybody, regardless of their level of literacy, could learn first aid. And then we also had, and in our courses during the classes and everything, we were very mindful of making sure that the course isn't boring, right? So one thing that we sat down and thought, "Log kyun nahi first aid karte?" And it's because thoda boring hota hai, aap jate ho, baiठते हो, aapko. And then we integrated role play and scenario based learning, and the trainings are crazy. I really recommend anybody who is listening to enroll in one of the trainings. It is one of the most, it's a really fun experience. You get,
whoever wants to enroll in these trainings, they don't have to go to union councils to get it. You have something to deliver within Pindi Islamabad as well.
Yes. So right now, because of COVID, things are a bit, topsy-turvy, to put it lightly. But we do have sessions that we do on a rolling basis. We go directly to organizations and schools if they have, our minimum number of participants who want to take the thing. If you're in Karachi, if you're in Lahore, Pindi, anything that's accessible. I know there's a lot of other places that are accessible. If you're anywhere where we can reach, just drop us a message on our Facebook page or send us an email, and we can have that conversation. We're really right now what we're offering to schools is the first aid training in collaboration with the mindfulness and empathy training for the teachers. Because it's not just the corporal punishment, right? वो तो चलो एक subsection और एक economic divide आ जाता है उसमें in this particular kind of behavior. But even in private schools, students are stressed, they are anxious, the teachers don't know how to help them, and being a teacher myself, teachers want to help, right? They want to know what they could possibly do to help their students, or what they're saying, because children are so sensitive now, and they are also so aware of nuances in communication, in language, and the layers that an interaction has. And the mindfulness training is basically just about understanding that the interaction that you have with your students can no longer be like a power dynamic that looks like this, right? You need to connect with your students because they need a sense of belonging as well. And it's so important for their mental health. It's a very fundamental part. वो जो Maslow का pyramid होता है, your safety needs and your emotional needs need to be met before you can achieve any kind of self-actualization, before you can achieve any kind of center. And so that training really focuses on that. So it's not just about the pinned. The pinned work is there in the gaon and in the rural areas because we wanted to bridge that gap of accessibility, right?
Okay.
I feel like because we were going into these private schools and people who can actually pay for these trainings and receive it and benefit for them, it was a little unfair that people who could not afford it were not getting it. So we made sure that that kind of balances out and we do both things in parallel.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. So let's come back to how mental health got added into the mix.
right.
Was that part of the initial vision, or you sensed the need for it? क्या कहानी थी?
So I think the initial vision, no. But I had a degree in psychology and I was very excited to kind of do something with it, and the clinic and sitting in one room talking to somebody somehow didn't appeal to me. And then, we wondered about what else we could do. And yes, the need for it also arose because we saw that it started off with the discussion on inclusion, and differentiated learning. जैसे मैं कह रही थी इनिशियली कि हमने बहुत डिस्कशन की अबाउट लोगों को एक्सेस होनी चाहिए इस कोर्स के लिए। अगर आप पढ़े लिखे नहीं भी हैं तो आपको ये कोर्स लेने के बाद या हमें इस तरीके से पढ़ाना आना चाहिए कि कोई भी इस कोर्स को ले सके, which then brought the concept of inclusivity, which then brought the concept of integrating people with other disabilities, integrating people with struggles who perhaps cannot do everyday normal things like other people can. And so we started, seeing how we could integrate mental health into our overall work and image, and that tied it into, the emergency healthcare intervention, the first aid intervention. So right now, we are also working on, well, it's still in the initial stages, but we're trying to launch the first mental health ambulance in Asia. And the second in the world, yes. And we're going to start off with like a little more of a pilot in a more academic manner to kind of see what we can do. We want to base it in main Islamabad, just a small prelim study / intervention, and see what happens. Because what happens is that our first responders are not trained in mental health intervention. If somebody is having a severe manic episode, a schizophrenic episode, a psychotic break, if somebody has, tried to commit suicide, how do you go in and help those people beyond the physical injuries that they have on the way to the hospital? Where do you take them? Are you doing anything to re-traumatize them? Are you doing anything to help them or not? So those were all conversations that we wanted to have. Is if somebody is addicted to some kind of drugs or has problems with addiction of any kind, and they have a relapse and they need to be taken to a hospital, how do you encourage them to go rather than stuff them in an ambulance and take them? Those are all things that, and there's not a lot of literature available here that takes into account the cultural context. So we're trying to base it on the model of the mental health ambulance in Sweden. Yeah, but obviously we want to make it culturally relevant. One thing that we've really learned is over the past 3 years is that bahir ki cheez utha ke yahan le aana does not necessarily work. So there's we're still in the planning phases of how this can happen, but we're really excited about this. We're trying to get it rolling as soon as possible as well.
That is wonderful to hear. Okay, not only is there going to be there's teaching workshops, empowering, all of that going on, but there's going to be an actual mental health ambulance.
Fingers crossed.
With fingers crossed. There's we know that there's a need. We know that there is a need, and for sure there's going to be the response that you're looking for. That's incredible. Okay, so again, if we get back to there's a question that was popped in. Why Saving9? How did that name come about?
It comes from the statement, the phrase, a stitch in time saves nine. So अगर आप पहले ही एक टांका लगा लें तो बड़ी
Right,
problem
right.
नहीं होगी. And so we thought it was great because it really caught the whole ethos of what we were trying to do, which is early intervention in an emergency situation.
Okay, okay. Fazan is here with us and his internet is working.
But actually what happened was that this lady was the first one to get her license. She started off on a really rocky start. This was her first lesson and she got spooked. But we told her, you can do it, koi baat nahi, ho jata hai, dekho hum sab zinda hai, kuch nahi hua, ha ha ha. We made it into a thing, and that really encouraged her, and she was the first one out of all of them to get her license, and we were so proud of her. And yeah, so it's been really fun, and it's sometimes aapko
So
apni
it's not
jaan pe
just
khatra laga.
so it's not just first aid training. You're also a driving school.
We became one for a bit, I guess. Bada maza aaya tha.
That's incredible. That is incredible. Acha, आप लोग, I'm very curious to know, most of the team members that you've mentioned, they're non-medical people.
I want you to read my hoodie and Fazan's hoodie. It says you don't have to be a doctor to save lives.
There you go. And actually, because that comes as it's an inspiration, and it's also food for thought. I mean, the cream of Pakistani schools is thought to go into medical school, right? And a lot of us go into medical colleges, और हमारे से जब पूछा जाता है डॉक्टर क्यों बनना है, हमारा एक वो स्टैंडर्ड जवाब होता है इंसानियत की खिदमत करने. तो उस इंसानियत की खिदमत का जज्बा हमें अमेरिका ले जाता है. वहाँ पे हम रेजिडेंसी कर लेते हैं, स्पेशलिस्ट बन जाते हैं, वहीं पे रहते हैं, फिर पता नहीं वहाँ पे इंसानियत को ज़रूरत ज़्यादा है शायद हमारी खिदमत की. तो that's but even here there is so much to be said कि हमारे curriculum में medical school के and the way we're trained, dealt with, taught during our house jobs and trainings, somewhere along the way we lose that empathy. Somewhere along the way there is nothing that is done about the desensitization that sets in, that this medical community should have taken that initiative in getting the hell out of the hospitals. कि आप अपनी clinics में मतलब you've turned them into ivory towers. And here's me having started off looking not to talk about negative stuff and focusing on all the good that takes place, but old habits die hard.
I bring the negativity in a lot of things. Rescue us in between as well.
Yeah, no, but I think you have a very valid point. You're right. But I think it's also somewhat unfair what you've said, because it's a bigger part of like an institutionalized norm that has been set in stone. It's not just their behavior towards the community in general, but also the community's behavior towards them, right? And it takes us to it's so interlinked and muddled, like there's no cause and effect. It can't be just कि वो कुछ करेंगे तो change आ जाएगा या नहीं आएगा, so but I will take up the point that you'd said about desensitization and the loss of empathy. Like being in the profession that they are, one could understand how that could happen. But there are steps needed to be taken, regular reminders, regular professional development, regular trainings that kind of keep you in touch with that, so to say, what you were saying, that jazba for humanity, right? And I think with our team as well, Fazan, you would agree with me, like every couple of, like biannually, we kind of sit down and we have a conversation with them, because they see so much trauma every day. It is very difficult to day in, day out see somebody bleed, see somebody cry, see somebody scream, and to sort of sit down with them and check in, like, hey, you've been exposed to these violent images. How are you feeling? Do you need some time off?
Good. They don't.
Do
They're
So
superhuman beings. Like,
yeah.
it's that
So if
they
you
don't
want,
realize what the toll that, and then that reflects as well. And
yeah, so if you want people to care and show that kind of care, I think people who are responsible for the medical community or for people who are seeing so much death every day need to be taken care of as well. वो खुद ही नहीं हो जाएगा. So because these people are fighting this self-preservation, like वो ये सब कुछ भी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वो अपनी emotional हलचल जो अंदर हो रही है, फड़फड़ हो रही है, उसको भी maintain कर रहे हैं, उसको कोई नहीं देख रहा. वो उसको पकड़ के बैठे हुए हैं जोर से. So I completely understand when something like this happens. And this then goes to conversation about a higher level where what are they doing to secure their mental health so that they could move forward. But that does not take away, yes, hospital ivory towers ban gaye hain. But I think वो चीजें आपस में intermesh हो गई हैं और वो एक बड़ा सा बॉल है जिसको like आहिस्ता, या चलो अनियन है जिसको आहिस्ता आहिस्ता पील ऑफ करेंगे तो आपको किसी किस्म की थोड़ा सा रोना भी आएगा, लेकिन फिर इवेंचुअली हांडी बन जाएगी.
हाँ, हांडी बनने से पहले आपका कोई कचूमर भी निकलेगा. It's gonna be a whole lot of there's a whole lot that goes in. If we can,
but I also want to say that I don't want to come across as कि हमें सारे जवाब आते हैं. I'm just kind of sharing what we've learned over the past 3 years here. Yeah.
I think also it's the on-ground experience is instrumental. Faizan, अगर आप मुझे, if you could share with us कि आपकी जो institutional bodies के साथ interaction रही है, the BHUs, the the Union Health Council, how have they contributed or been an obstacle, I don't know, in the path of whatever it is that you're looking to develop in those particular communities?
So, with regards to the latter, the Union Health Council has been quite supportive. The president over there, in conjunction with us, was the Yehudi Sadish I was talking about, because the guy himself is quite progressive. He has spent the Union Council president. He's spent most of his life in France, and he just came back a few years ago. And he's been on like developing that place in terms of infrastructure, in terms of basic medical and health facilities, schools, and everything. And he campaigns throughout. And his name is Raja Kaisal Ghaffar. And I am like very lucky to have met someone like him, because there are not many other Union Council presidents like him. So we struck gold when we met him. And when it comes to the BHU, I think that they were quite unsupportive, and we had to literally carve out our niche over there. We had to beg pretty much for a room over there because the doctor wasn't coming over there. There were spider webs filled within the in the dorms of that doctor over there. It was empty for the longest time, and it was pretty hard. But we eventually, through the Union Council president, were able to get one room, which we then rebranded, painted, and just made this try to make it a center of learning and just compassion as well. I mean, one of the EMPs says, like, when we go, they send us videos of gardening in that particular area. When we were over there, now we shifted to hospitals, which are recently I. But they used to be gardening, and I often asked him, Arshad bhai, aap matlab ye kyun kar rahe hain? Ye to aur kaam nahi hai. So he said, नहीं, हम फल लगा रहे हैं ताकि और लोग, हम लोग बीज लगाएं ताकि और लोग आगे उसका छांव ले. And that just really caught me, like they somehow managed to infuse this medical training, like the scientific medical training, with their personal community ethos. And that sense of ownership was just so, like, it reverberates through them. It's pretty clear because they respond whether they're sleeping, it's just amazing how they do it. And they do it, and they are always that voice note of Alhamdulillah wo ho gaya. I kid you not, I have not seen a single death within the ambulance. We've heard about deaths outside the ambulance. They left them in the hospital, but there's some divine force guiding them, because these people are not literate. But the scenarios that they've been through, I mean, Osama, Amna, Saima, all of these people were their trainers, and they repetitively put them through these regimented scenarios in which if something could be slightly different or something, like just to help them to learn to improvise. So that really is something that I think they have owned up to and they're confident about. And they are now teaching, like the workshop I just told you, we are expanding in that sense. So it's like full circle. It's great. And it's great to witness that.
जो आपने मिसाल दी थी जो वो फल लगाने की जो the gardening that they're doing, and I think it really says it's symbolic of what you've been able to develop कि जब आप अपनी तरफ से खैर लेके जाते हो, not with the look to, not with an aim to supplant or replace or dictate, but with a genuine intent to build a community and to relate, then you're able to attract towards you the best that that community has to offer as well. और फिर वो अपनी रिवायत में से, अपनी tradition में से, उसके the people themselves, regardless of their level of literacy, then they're able to share their wisdom and bring that into that beautiful relationship as well. And we see literally fruits of those trees. Okay, so very quickly before we close, Faizan, Amna, there's people.
Share actually.
जी, please.
Amna probably knows it. Punjabi mein Mali da kam. Do you remember that share?
Yeah, it says Mali da kam phal phulana. पल पल. Oh my God, फैजान मुझे भूल गए. हमारी अम्मी हमें ये रोज सुनाती थी. फैजान, you really put me on the spot, but it basically means के जो माली है वो लगाएगा अपनी फसलें और पानी देगा उसको और अल्लाह का काम है कि वो उसको बड़ा करे. I've ruined it. I'm so sorry.
Now that you mention it, शेर मुझे भी आता है, लेकिन I can't get the word.
मुझे बिल्कुल भूल गया.
Okay, Faizan's happening again.
The internet is not working.
Chale, that's okay. Okay. Chale, it was fun having you as long as you could be here with us, Faizan. We're gonna have to ask you to thank you for being here, for sparing your time with us and sharing what you're doing with us. Amna, very quickly, there's people watching, and there will be people hopefully watching the recording as well. They want to know how they can benefit from what you have to offer and how they can contribute to whatever it is that you're doing. How do they do that, and what can they do?
Okay, so benefit you can take away from here is by enlisting in the trainings. Not to sound like, oh, हमारी training बहुत amazing है, but हमारी trainings बहुत amazing है, बहुत मजा आता है. And the added bonus is that you kind of learn how to save lives. You understand what to do in case of an emergency. अगर आपके घर में कोई बुजुर्ग हैं, बड़े हैं, उनकी help कैसे करनी है, खुदा ना खास्ता. All of those things are included in this. And then, I mean, mental health is a really important conversation, and our first aid course also has the psychological first aid intervention aspect to it as well. It has methods of communicating with other people that center around kindness and empathy, which are so important. So please do enroll in the course. You'll be benefiting yourself and everybody around you. And if you do want to play a role in building Masiha Ambulance up, if you go on our website, you can donate to the ambulance. We also have a zakat fund for people who cannot afford the services of the ambulance and utilize it. The charges of the ambulance are completely waived off for them. And you might be helping someone by doing that. So please do donate if you can. And if you want to get involved, if you want to work, if you want an internship at the BHU work at the ambulance with us, especially for students. We really offer this. It really works as community service hours. It's great for character building. So if any parents are listening, you want your children to come in and interact with us, with the EMPs, learn about culture in a different context, please get in touch. It would be great to have you and work with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amina, for sharing all of that. All of you listening, all of these wonderful trainings that you have at your disposal, really, to benefit from, and then a wonderful cause to donate for. Before I forget, the reason why Saving9 and Telepsychiatry met in the first place, something that we're going to be we're very excited about signing an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding with Saving9 in order to further our services in mental health profession. For Faizan was sharing earlier, Amna se bhi hamari baat hui thi कि there are a lot of emergencies, poisoning se related, self-harm, attempted suicide se related, which do need a follow-up. They need psychiatric help, they need psychological help. So whatever we can offer from the platform of Telepsychiatry Pakistan, we would be looking to develop this collaboration as well. And to end with the share that Faizan was alluding towards, that Amna was talking about from Mia Muhammad Baksh. Not that I remember it off the top of my head, but Kuratulain was kind enough to share it in the comments. So I'm just going to read it off and sound very poetic. Mali da kam pani dena, par mashka pave. Malik da kam phal phul lana lave yana lave. Thank you, Amna. Thank you, Faizan, for being with us. We will continue to try to support you as much as we can. Thank you for your support, for our cause, for whatever it is that we're doing, for coming to Psych Baithak and really honoring our show. Thank you all for your comments, for your questions, for your participation. We will see you next week on Psych Baithak as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.